Welcome to the Power of Influence Leadership in Action, the podcast that transforms leadership research into practical tools for managers, executives, and founders who want to inspire loyalty, strengthen performance, and build cultures that last. I am your host, Paulette Sterling. Today, we are exploring one of the most practical and powerful aspects of leadership: influence behaviors. The specific tools leaders use to gain cooperation, secure agreement, and move people toward organizational goals. Your influence behaviors shape how people interpret your intentions, your fairness, your credibility, and ultimately their commitment to the organization. Some influence behaviors build trust, others quietly erode it. And most leaders don't even realize which ones they're using. This episode will help you see your influence patterns clearly and choose them intentionally. Let's dive in. Let me take you into a real life scenario which could happen in a Caribbean organization. A manager, we'll call her Miss Henry, needed her team to adopt a new customer service protocol. It required more documentation, more follow up, and more attention to detail. She gathered her team one morning and said, "Head office wants this done. I don't want any pushback. Just follow the instructions." The room went silent. People nodded and their energy dropped. Over the next few weeks, compliance was inconsistent. Some employees followed the protocol reluctantly. Others ignored parts of it. A few resisted openly. Now, let's contrast that with another manager in the same organization, Mr. Lewis. He needed his team to adopt the same protocol. He approached it differently, however. Here is Mr. Lewis. Let me explain why this matters. We have had repeat complaints about follow up. This new process will help us reduce errors and protect our reputation. I want your input on how we can make this work smoothly in our branch. Mr. Lewis listened. He clarified. He adjusted timelines. He offered support. His team didn't just comply, they committed. So, same organization, same change, two completely different outcomes. The difference wasn't personality. The difference wasn't charisma. The difference wasn't even seniority. It was, yes, you have it right, influence behavior. One manager used pressure and legitimizing, behaviors that often create resistance. The other used rational persuasion, consultation, and collaboration, behaviors that build trust and commitment. I wonder if you can say which one did which behavior. You see, this is the power of influence in action. My ebook, The Power of Influence, Managerial Behaviors and Organizational Commitment, I outline 11 influence behaviors identified by Yukl and Falbe, proactive tools leaders use to gain cooperation or agreement. Let's break them into two categories. So there are influence behaviors that build trust and commitment. So let's dive into those first. These behaviors strengthen relationships, increase buy-in, and support long-term performance. Let's look at the first one, rational persuasion. This is where you are using facts, logic, and clear reasoning. Here is an example. Here's the data showing why this change improves customer satisfaction. A statement like this, using rational persuasion, builds credibility and understanding. Let's look at another influence behavior, consultation. This is where you involve people in shaping the plan. Here is an example of what you'll hear when a leader is using consultation as an influence behavior. What challenges do you see and how can we address them together? Consultation increases ownership. A third influence behavior is collaboration. This is where a leader offers support, resources, or partnership. Here is an example of a statement you may hear a leader use when they are practicing the influence behavior called collaboration. What do you need from me to make this successful? You see, collaboration reduces resistance and builds psychological safety. Then there is inspirational appeal. This is another influence behavior. It connects the request to values, purpose, or identity. Here is an example of a statement you might hear a leader uses when they are using inspirational appeal. This aligns with who we are as a team. We take pride in excellence. You see, inspirational appeal taps into meaning and pride. Here is another influence behavior that builds trust and commitment. It's called apprising. This is showing how the request benefits each individual. Here is an example of a statement a leader might use when they are practicing apprising influence behavior. This new skill will position you for future opportunities. You see, apprising influence behavior builds alignment between personal and organizational goals. Then there is ingratiation. When used authentically, it is how you express genuine appreciation before making a request. Notice, you need to use it in a sincere and authentic way. So not superficial or fake. Here's an example of a statement you might hear when someone is using ingratiation in an authentic way. I value the way you handle complex customers. Your insight will help us shape this process. You see, authentic appreciation strengthens connection. And then sadly, we have influence behaviors that break trust and reduce commitment. These behaviors may produce short-term compliance, but it damages long-term engagement. Here are some key influence behaviors that will break trust and reduce commitment. I'll start with pressure. These are influence behaviors that one uses when they are using demands, threats, or tight deadlines. Here is an example of a statement you might hear a leader use when they are practicing pressure influence behavior, even if they don't even realize it. Just do it. No questions asked. Please, please, just do it. This actually creates fear, not commitment. Then there is another influence behavior that break trust and reduce commitment. It's called legitimizing. This is where a leader leans on rules, policies, or authority. So this leader may say something like, "This is the policy. End of discussion." This may be necessary sometimes, but overused, it creates distance. Then there is another influence behavior. It's called coalition. A lot of leaders use this and don't even realize what they're doing. It is when you use other support to pressure someone else. So here's an example of a statement you may hear. "Everyone else agrees. You should too. Come on." This can feel like manipulation. So be careful as a leader when you're using coalition as an influence behavior. Then there is exchange. This influence behavior can actually break trust and reduce commitment. Let me show you how. You see, because exchange influence behavior is actually offering something in return. So you will hear something like, "If you do this, I'll adjust your schedule." It may be useful occasionally, but in a transactional way, especially if it's overused, it breaks trust. And then there is personal appeal. You can get into trouble for this one because this is where you're using friendship or personal connection to influence someone to do something. So you may hear something like, "Do this for me. You know I always support you." This can actually feel like emotional coercion. You don't want to put anyone in that position. So here is the key insight for you. Your influence behaviors are never neutral. They shape trust, motivation, psychological safety, organizational commitment, team culture, and performance. And here's the part many leaders often overlook. Your team experiences your influence behaviors as the organization's voice. Let me repeat that. Your team experiences your influence behaviors as the organization's voice. So, if your influence feels supportive, the organization feels supportive. If your influence feels harsh, the organization feels harsh. This is why influence is actually leadership. So let me give you some practical takeaways. I'm going to give you 3 ways to strengthen your influence behaviors this month. Number 1, identify your default influence behavior. Ask yourself, when I'm under pressure, what influence behavior do I use most? So ask yourself, do I explain? Do I consult? Do I pressure? Or do I legitimize? You see, awareness is the first step to mastery. So again, you want to identify your default influence behavior. Most times, this is the influence behavior you use without even realizing. So that's why you're going to have to be aware and pinpoint what that is. Number 2, choose one high trust behavior to practice intentionally. So pick one from any of these 4: consultation, rational persuasion, collaboration, or inspirational appeal. Then apply it in a real situation this week. For example, here is something that you could say. Here's the outcome we need. I would like your input on how we can get there effectively. Watch how the energy shifts. And then a third practical takeaway I want to give you to practice, or at least be aware of. Reduce your use of pressure and legitimizing. You don't need to eliminate them because they actually have their place, but use them sparingly and intentionally. So before giving a directive, ask, is there a way to influence this through clarity, support, or purpose instead? This small shift transforms compliance into commitment. Leaders, here's your reflection question for this month. What influence behavior do I use most this week? And what impact did it have on my team? Then ask yourself, what's one influence behavior I want to use more intentionally? If you're willing, share your insight on LinkedIn using the hashtag influence in action. Your reflection might help another leader shift their approach. So you see, influence is not manipulation. It's not control. It's not even authority. Influence is the art of moving people with clarity, respect, and purpose. When used intentionally, influence behaviors build trust, strengthen commitment, and elevate performance. If today's episode gave you something to think about, may I invite you to subscribe to the Power of Influence Leadership in Action. That's my podcast. Share this episode with a leader navigating change. And join my Legacy Impact Circle for deeper tools, bonus episodes, and leadership resources. Next month, we'll explore the hidden cost of compliance, why doing the job isn't enough. And remember, leadership is lived in moments. Choose your moments with intention.